September, 1939. A quiet garrison square in Tidworth. A small tank rolls forward. 3 men are packed inside. The turret is so cramped the commander and gunner are pressed shoulder to shoulder, every movement shared, every breath close. Its armor, just 14 millimeters at its thickest, is barely thicker than a thumb. Its weapons? Not a cannon. Just 2 machine guns, mounted side by side. 5 tons of steel. A top speed of 35 miles per hour. An engine that whines rather than roars. It doesn't look like a machine built for a modern war. It looks like something from a conflict that was never supposed to happen. But war had already arrived. Just months earlier, Germany had unleashed the Panzer III in Poland, a 24-ton tank armed with a 50mm cannon and armor thick enough to shrug off machine gun fire entirely. And here, on this parade ground, sat its opposite. 5 tons. 14mm of armor. A .50 caliber Vickers machine gun that couldn't penetrate a Panzer III at any realistic range. Everyone knew it. The officers watching. The crews assigned to it. The officials in the War Office who approved it. They sent it anyway. Because there was nothing else. This machine, the light tank Mark VI, would go to France in May 1940. To the deserts of Libya 6 months later. To Greece, to Crete, to Java. It would appear in nearly every opening land campaign Britain fought in the Second World War. And everywhere it went, the story repeated itself. Crews burned inside it. Abandoned it on beaches. Left it stranded in deserts and jungles. In France alone, over 300 were lost in a single week. Then the survivors were sent somewhere else, and it happened again. To understand why this happened, you have to go back to what Britain believed in the 1930s. After the First World War, armored warfare was neatly divided into roles. Cruiser tanks would break through and chase. Infantry tanks would move slowly with foot soldiers. And light tanks, like the Mark VI, were never meant to fight. They were scouts. Find the enemy. Report back. Avoid contact. The assumption was simple: if they did meet opposition, it would be similar vehicles, light, thinly armored, lightly armed. Machine guns would be enough. That assumption shaped everything. It produced a line of vehicles designed by John Carden and Vivian Lloyd, whose designs evolved through the 1930s under Vickers Armstrongs. The Mark VI was the final step in that lineage. It was also obsolete before it even reached the troops. On paper, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. It was cheap. It was fast. It was reliable. Its Meadows engine gave it speed and range. Its suspension could survive the brutal conditions of the desert. A driver could be trained in just days. But none of that mattered when it faced real opposition. Its main weapon could penetrate roughly 16 millimeters of armor at 300 meters, enough for lightly armed vehicles, useless against anything Germany fielded. German anti-tank guns could punch straight through it. One hit was often enough to destroy it completely. By 1940, Britain had built around 1,682 of them. They were the most common tanks in the British Army. They were also among the least capable armored vehicles any major power sent into battle. How did that happen? The answer lies in policy, not engineering. After World War I, Britain adopted the 10-year rule, the assumption that no major war would occur within the next decade. It was renewed year after year, slashing military budgets and halting development. By the time rearmament began, it was too late. There were no modern tank designs ready. No industrial base prepared. No time. So Britain built what it could. Quickly. Cheaply. In numbers. The Mark VI wasn't the best tank available. It was the only tank available. In France, 1940, reality hit hard. British forces deployed hundreds of Mark VIs alongside units like the 4th Royal Tank Regiment and 10th Royal Hussars. They faced over 2,500 German tanks. The imbalance was overwhelming. And yet, the Mark VI found one unexpected role: communication. At battles like Arras, many heavier British tanks lost radio contact. The light tanks, ironically, became the only reliable communication network on the battlefield. They weren't strong enough to fight. But they held the army together. Stories from inside them tell everything. At Arras, an anti-tank round tore straight through one Mark VI's turret, passing behind both crewmen's heads without killing them. They sat in silence. Then calmly stuffed socks into the holes. Not because it would save them. But because it felt like it might. Elsewhere, the outcomes were harsher. At the Battle of Happy, British tanks advanced alone after a warning failed to arrive. Many never came back. Of roughly 400 Mark VIs sent to France, over 300 were lost. In North Africa, things briefly changed. Against Italian tankettes, light, thinly armored machines, the Mark VI was suddenly effective. During Operation Compass, it performed exactly as intended: fast, mobile, and deadly against weak opposition. For a moment, the design made sense. Then Erwin Rommel arrived. German tanks, even the lighter Panzer II, outclassed it completely. The Mark VI couldn't fight back. By 1941, it was being replaced by the M3 Stuart, a vehicle with an actual cannon. The replacement came too late for many of the men who had already fought in it. And still, it kept going. In Greece, a handful of these tanks held mountain passes long enough to save retreating infantry. In Crete, just two helped delay German forces long enough for an entire division to escape. In Java, the last crews drove them to the edge of a ravine, stripped them, and pushed them in, before surrendering. Everywhere it was sent, the ending was the same: destroyed, abandoned, left behind. The 3rd King's Own Hussars would operate it across 4 different theaters: North Africa, Greece, Crete, and Java. Not one of their tanks survived. Today, only a handful remain. One stands at the Tank Museum. Another at Yad Vashem Museum. Relics of a machine that was never meant to fight the war it was thrown into. Return, for a moment, to that parade ground in 1939. 5 tons of steel. 14 millimeters of armor. 2 machine guns. No cannon. No real protection. No chance against the enemies it would face. And yet, it went anyway. To France. To the desert. To the mountains. To the jungle. Because Britain had nothing else. And the men inside it went because that was their job. The Mark VI was not a good tank. It was never meant to be. It was built to be cheap, fast, and available, and by 1940, it was all 3. And it was all Britain had. The price of that decision wasn't paid in factories or budgets. It was paid by the men inside those machines. That isn't a failure of courage. It's a failure of nations.